Welcome to Subconscious Conversations, where we take a look into the intricate world of the subconscious mind and how to heal the body, mind, heart, and spirit through its wisdom and guidance. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Brielle, and I'm the soul practitioner at Springseed Wellness, where I practice the energy medicine techniques of emotion code, body code, and belief code, which were created by the wonderful Dr. Bradley Nelson. In today's episode, I will be talking about the disconnection between some religious views and energy medicine. As I mentioned in episode 9, I sometimes feel ridiculed, misunderstood, and sometimes even demonized for the work I do, and that's very concerning to me. And I thought I had approached that subject enough in episode 9, but then I came across an online discussion between a couple other practitioners who were talking about clients of theirs who had gained a lot of benefit from this work, but then suddenly turned around and demonized the practitioner and wanted no part in the healing capabilities of it anymore. And it's always based on religious views. So I was extremely compelled to do some research and to discuss this subject a little further. Now, first and foremost, I really want to stress I am very much a live and let live kind of person. While I might struggle to understand someone else's views, and I can sometimes get pretty frustrated during that process, I still very much respect each individual's free will to decide what best suits their life. And I believe that we can all still love and respect each other and treat one another with dignity, even if we don't see the world in the same way. So I don't want this to sound like an attack on anyone else's beliefs or views, but rather a defense on how we can all live in peace with one another. So I'll give you a little bit of background. Long story short, I was basically raised being exposed to many different religions and allowed and encouraged to explore what felt right to me and what I wanted to believe. And from that freedom to decide for myself what my own soul felt connected to, I basically pieced together my own set of beliefs based solely on what feels right in my soul and what doesn't. Now, technically, I was baptized and I was officially part of a organized religion as a young child, but we weren't able to attend church as often as was customary within that religion. And we were oftentimes ridiculed and labeled as heathens and being made to feel like lesser human beings because of it. So I will concede that I have a lifetime of feeling like people are judging me for being a bad person, when in actuality, I do my best to be my best every moment. Now, I am human, so sometimes I fail, but I try. And I guess that's why this subject gets to me so much, is because I just really don't like being viewed as a bad person when my only goal in life is to become a better person every day and to help ease the suffering of others. But I digress. So, since childhood, I have not been part of any particular organized religion, but that doesn't mean that I don't have incredibly strong faith. I believe God is pure love, compassion, forgiveness, and all things most wonderful. I believe we are all connected through this godly love and its unifying energy. And I believe we are all born with a pure and divine spark of God within us and a divine compass of right and wrong, and that we all have a divine purpose in this world. Yet, God has also created us to have free will, so it's our choice whether or not to listen to that divine compass, and it's up to us to let that guide us to our divine purpose. And it's up to us to keep that light of God inside us glowing and spreading into the world, rather than to let all the trials and tribulations of life pile on top of us and extinguish it. And I believe we're supposed to live a life in God's image, and that we do that by living a life of spreading as much love and compassion and support of one another and all other things in this world as we possibly can. I believe that we all have a specific and unique path to take in life, which allows our soul to grow to the fullest amount capable, and that we must try to find our path and stay on it and allow others to do the same. And I don't believe that everything in our life is destined or predetermined, because we have free will, and so every choice we make changes the possible outcomes in our lives. But I think there's a general trajectory that we're intended to go, and it's up to us to make the choices that keep us as close as possible to that trajectory. And I believe that there are negative forces and positive forces at play within this balancing act of life. And it's up to us to use that divine compass inside us and our own divine spark in order to embrace the positive and reject the negative. Now, we're all human, we all make mistakes, and life is so incredibly dynamic, and oftentimes really horrible things happen. But it's up to us to continue to do our best with the situation that we're in and keep moving forward the best we can. Okay, so now you know my personal beliefs, which I think sets the stage of where I'm coming from in this exploration. So, out of frustration of feeling demonized for trying to help others, I started doing research to try and understand different beliefs and points of view, to try and reconcile in my own mind why there seems to be such a disconnect between some religions and energy medicine. And that's just how I work. I try to understand things from as broad of a perspective as I can so that I can ensure that I'm making the best educated decisions for myself. And what I found was there seems to be a lot of religions that believe that energy medicine and muscle testing in particular are divination practices. Now, personally, I don't really see anything wrong with divination practices, at least not within the purview of my personal definition of it. So I tried to find out exactly what the official definition of divination is so that I could understand why it was being seen as evil. So Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines it as the art or practice that seeks to foresee or foretell future events or discover hidden knowledge, usually by the interpretation of omens or by the aid of supernatural powers. Britannica defines it as the practice of determining the hidden significance or cause of events, sometimes foretelling the future, by various natural, psychological, and other techniques. Bible Dictionary Today defines it as the practice of seeking to understand or predict future events through supernatural means. Baker's Evangelical Dictionary of Biblical Theology defines it as the communication with a deity for the purpose of determining the deity's knowledge, resulting in a clarification of a decision or discernment of the future. Okay, so side note here, I am really failing to understand how this last statement is not just directly describing exactly what prayer is. So if there's anyone who can clarify that for me, please do. Maybe by deity they mean a deity other than God, and maybe the issue is coming in with the line of attempt to discern the future. But in my opinion, praying is exactly that. It's communicating with God, who is a deity, in order to obtain clarity and guidance towards the best decision. But either way. So Christianity.com states, divination is the effort to obtain insight into a question or situation by way of an occultic standardized process or ritual. To engage in divination is to reveal mysterious knowledge by supernatural practices. It is correlated with the occult and involves fortune telling. So, Bible verses that are often cited against divination include Deuteronomy 18:10, which states, "Let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter in the fire, who practices divination or interprets omens, engages in witchcraft or casts spells, or who is a medium, or who consults the dead. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord." And another one that's quoted is Jeremiah 14:14, which states, "They are prophesying you a lying vision, worthless divination, and the deceit of their own minds." So, in an effort to cast a wide net and get all perspectives possible, I did also look at an occult website, since so many definitions refer to divination being an occult practice. And the first thing I read on that website was the author saying that the first step to divination is to connect to a demon and to obtain its knowledge. I immediately closed that website as fast as I could, and I felt a little dirty inside just from looking at it, because that is definitely the last thing I would ever want to expose myself or anyone else to. So, as far as these definitions go, I am in no way practicing divination, because I'm not trying to tell the future. In fact, I believe that is impossible, as I discussed in episode 6. And I don't interpret omens or use any supernatural means to do anything. I'm not qualified or comfortable to do either of those things. I'm not seeking any conversation with any spiritual being of any sort at all. I'm seeking a conversation with the client's subconscious mind, all while praying for divine guidance and divine protection for both me and my client, so that we can be protected against any interfering or impure energies during that process. And I most certainly am not practicing any occult rituals. I'm not practicing witchcraft. I'm not doing spells. I'm not taking part in any sort of sacrifices whatsoever. Now, here is where I do strongly disagree with the mainstream religious beliefs. Is a lot of the material I read indicates a view that intuition is part of divination and cannot be trusted. Yet, I remember being raised hearing stories in Sunday school about the Holy Ghost guiding me to determine what's right and what's wrong. And isn't that done through intuition? So how can that be bad? And in fact, John 14:16 through 14:17 states, "And I will ask the Father, and he will give you another counselor to be with you forever. He is the Spirit of truth. The world is unable to receive him because it does not see him or know him. But you know him because he remains with you and will be in you." So doesn't that mean that we have a guiding force within us that allows us to determine right from wrong? And doesn't that happen through our internal feelings? And isn't that the same thing as intuition? Also, James 1:5 states, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him." Doesn't that mean that we can ask God for guidance and he will give us guidance? Is that not how we communicate with God, is through our spiritual connection to him? And doesn't that take place by receiving feelings and visions? And isn't that just what intuition is? Maybe I'm misunderstanding things, but that's how I feel about it. Bible Dictionary Today talks about the importance of seeking God for wisdom and guidance instead of relying on human interpretations or supernatural practices. Now, I read that to mean that I should rely first and foremost on my own internal knowing of God's guidance instead of relying on how someone else has interpreted it, and rather than relying on what someone else is telling me to believe. And they also cite Proverbs 3:5 through 3:6, which states, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." That almost sounds like they're saying to trust what the church tells you and don't trust your own feelings. But I think it's saying to trust what you feel is right in your heart and not what you've been told by someone else. And this is a little bit akin to me of the phrase, beware of false prophets, but I think that speaks more to trusting that inner knowing of truth rather than trusting what another person is telling you to be the truth. Now, my personal take on divination is that it's simply a way to tap into our own mind, soul, and heart, or to connect to God and the angels or whatever positive guiding forces, for the purpose of opening up to their divine guidance and messages that the Bible clearly states that they bestow lovingly upon us, and all we have to do is ask. And I also have to point out that the apostles used divination practices of casting lots to choose a new disciple after Judas. And this is stated in Acts 1:23 through 1:26, where it says, "So they nominated 2 men, Joseph called Barsabbas, also known as Justus, and Matthias. Then they prayed, 'Lord, you know everyone's heart. Show us which one of these 2 you have chosen to take over this apostolic ministry, which Judas left to go where he belongs.' Then they cast lots, and the lot fell to Matthias, so he was added to the 11 apostles." And it wasn't until Christian emperors in ancient Rome decided to label divining as a pagan practice that it became unacceptable. So there's a little bit of conflicting messaging going on there as far as I can tell. But again, I have to say, I am merely opening up a conversation with my client's subconscious mind with divine guidance and protection. Now, other religious concerns against energy medicine come from the idea that people are practicing sorcery or performing miracles or using supernatural means or having ties to the occult. And we've already discussed some of this, but I would like to say here that I really feel like it kind of all depends on what kind of energy medicine you're talking about. I could see how some modalities might be kind of treading on the boundaries of some of these things, or where some practitioners might use some stronger language that accidentally gives a miraculous curing expectation to their clients. I can see how some of the details that come up during my sessions could seem like I'm a mind reader, and how some people could see that as being miraculous or supernatural. But I assure you, in these modalities, there are no supernatural forces being called upon, unless you consider praying for divine guidance and protection as being supernatural forces. But I can assure you that I am not a mind reader, as I have discussed in past episodes, and I'm not performing any miracles of any kind. The only thing I'm doing is removing the negative energies trapped in your body so that your body can heal itself as it was divinely designed to do. And I'm also removing these negative energies to enable you to more clearly connect to your own connection to God so that you can receive His loving guidance with less negative interference. Now, I know that there are some people who use energetic manipulation for selfish and dark purposes. And I know that there are positive forces and negative forces in the world. And I believe that we all must do our best to avoid the negative forces and embrace the positive forces. And I know that we're all more vulnerable to the negative forces and influences at certain times in our lives. For example, when we're ill, injured, intoxicated, or emotionally distressed or traumatized. Those are the times it's the most important to care for yourself and make sure that you have a strong connection with God with the least amount of interfering energies possible so that you're not as vulnerable to those negative forces that are intended to misguide you. And it does sound a little fantastic, but through my faith and through my spiritual connection, I can feel when there are positive energies involved and when there are negative energies involved. And I have learned how to invoke the positive energies to eradicate the negative energies. And that's not done through supernatural means, but rather through prayer. And nobody can tell me that that's a bad thing. Furthermore, I must add that Jesus himself was a healer. And John 14:12 through 14:14 states, "Very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these, because I am going to the Father. And I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that the Father may be glorified in the Son. You may ask me for anything in my name, and I will do it." To me, that indicates that we were all designed and destined to carry on Jesus' mission of easing the suffering of others so that they can live a life being a truer reflection of God's love. Because when we're at our lowest points in life, it's really hard to be the best person we can be under that amount of stress and anguish. But that's when we need God's guidance and love the most. And that's what I love about this work is it's helped me find my faith again and actually increase my faith dramatically during a time when I had completely lost all faith. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that I had lost all faith, but I will say that the only thing I had faith in at that lowest point was I will keep surviving until I don't. And won't it be nice when I no longer have to worry about surviving? So to go from a place that dark and low to a place where I feel so warm and secure in my spirituality is nothing but a beautiful thing. I truly believe that God gave me this undying desire to help others and the focus of keeping myself safe, protected, and aligned with good, and the gift of the ability to help others. And I believe that God orchestrated the divine timing in me discovering these modalities at the perfect time when I needed them the most. And I cannot believe that this beautiful gift and the incredible transformation I've experienced through this work could possibly be anything negative. No, I firmly believe this is truly a gift from God to help others heal and alleviate their suffering so that they can reignite and or amplify the divine spark, the divine compass, and the divine purpose which reside within all of us. You know, I love doing explorations like this because I'm constantly wondering whether or not I know what the heck I'm talking about, and I'm constantly wondering whether or not you know what the heck you're talking about. And basically, I don't really think any of us have a clue what the heck we're talking about. We're all just here trying to do our best to get through life the best way we can, even though it can sometimes be incredibly unpleasant. So I really hope I didn't offend anyone. I'm not trying to sit here and say I'm right and you're wrong. This is purely an attempt to understand others and to be understood. Because the more we understand each other, the more compassion we have towards one another, and the better the world is. So, on that note, thank you so much for joining me today, and please join me for next episode. I have not decided what I'm going to be talking about yet, so it will be a surprise. See you then. If you would like to set up a session with me to experience this work for yourself, please go to springseedwellness.com. If you would like to find a practitioner in your local area, please go to discoverhealing.com. And please always feel free to reach out with any questions or specific topics you would like me to address. See you next episode.